Hey, we're Matt and Julie Beemer with Jonathan and Elizabeth Beemer, and we are celebrating 30 years of living and ministering overseas. And to do that, we're going to be sharing stories both today, Club 1040 Day, and throughout the year coming. We'll be dropping different stories, different podcasts, and things like that to show you how your investment in Club 1040 is making an impact throughout the Middle East and North Africa, and to talk about how by the year 2030, we want to see that impact expand and continue in a strong and more quick way. So make sure you don't miss out, and also help us out by sharing these with your friends as well. Spread the word, because the more we get this word out, the more we can do, the more quickly we can do it together. God bless. Yeah, so obviously, we know that if our calling is to go from place to place, we can't keep funding everything as we go to some new place, that kind of a thing. So Club 1040 ends up being kind of that thing that is the provision for the pioneering phase, with always the aim that everything gets turned over to local leadership, then it becomes local funded, with a local propagation. So self-funded, self-governing, and self-propagating. And that happens through teams. So, we go into a place, we pray out the strategy. Every strategy is a little bit unique, but it always has to do with training leaders, mobilizing missionaries, and inspiring the church. So the aim is to raise up the leaders to be able to turn everything over to them so that they can continue to build on it. And to do that, we establish a very strong leadership culture, and we're very intentional about it from the very beginning. It was funny that when we were in our meeting with all the volunteers in our apartment, I remember having all 20 of them sat around this table, and they'll talk about it now. They're like, we felt like for the first 3 months we weren't ever going to get anything done, because all we did is talk about who we are, not what we're going to do. And so it's all about the culture and developing culture. And it's like, we do everything in teams. We're not doers, we're disciple makers. What are our communication standards? All these different things. So in each place, we try to bring everybody into that understanding. And we've learned how to do that better and better with each new location. So it happens more quickly and gets into people more quickly. Mm-hmm. So as we began to transition out of Nigeria, the Lord spoke to our heart about relocating to Lebanon and positioning ourselves for the next phase of our missionary calling. And that was primarily to the Arab-speaking areas based in Lebanon. And the same thing, started with just a taxi driver and a couple other people, eventually develop a launch team. We're building that same leadership culture into it. And then we launched the church, about 300 people or more on the launch Sunday. And then a year later, we're able to turn that church over. And then, not much longer, we start the Bible college, and we're in the process where right now we're about to turn that Bible college over.
Yeah. I don't think we talk about this a lot, but you are so good. And I think it's because we've had a strong role model here in the States. It's seen as strong women leaders. Other countries don't have that privilege, but everywhere you go, Matt, you have empowered women. And I don't think people recognize and see the leaders that have come up. And, we see the men that you've raised up, but everywhere you've gone, you have valued women, and they have stepped up into higher roles than they've ever stepped up. In England, in Lebanon, in Nigeria, we start giving them responsibilities, and we start showing them that they can do stuff. And when people see you respecting these women and giving them very high responsibility, it's like it changes the culture around everywhere we go. And so that's one thing that I don't think it's very visible, but one thing that I admire is that we have strong women everywhere we go, and they see how strong they are. And many of them are, you might not see their faces all the time, but they're literally moving and shaking in all the places that we go. Yeah. Oh. In England, we had a lady named Karen. She had never done anything like she was doing at the end. She was just
say boo to her and she'd start crying.
She made curtains for a living, and Matt just started giving her responsibility. She'd come in and she'd just be crying because it was just too much, and she couldn't do it. And she, and Matt would just talk her through it. And then all of a sudden, she was organizing everything. Now, in fact, Bupa hired her after we had gone, after she had finished the job that she had done with us. Bupa hired her, and she was like, I could basically rule the world now because of everything that you taught me. Then in Nigeria, there's several women that are involved in leading the Uche. She's one of the main leaders there. And now in Lebanon, we've got people like Christelle and Pamela that Christelle literally could probably rule all of Lebanon if they would give her the responsibility.
So you guys went from Nigeria. How did you start moving towards Lebanon? Also, that was the first time that you guys moved without me and Jonathan. So that's kind of a new thing for you guys. How was that?
That dynamic was a lot more different than what we thought. I think you probably did too, but speaking for myself, I assumed that it would be, I mean, Jonathan had gone to boarding school when he was 16, 15 and a half. And you guys have been kind of on your own. You'd been in Australia, those kind of things by then. And I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal for us. It wasn't like the typical empty nest thing. But when we got there, and it's like, Lebanon is amazing. It's a beautiful place. The people are amazing. And Julie's like, not super happy. I'm like, what's going on?
Well, and I didn't realize what was happening either,
It snuck up on us.
It's kind of snuck up on us. But I had heard a sermon, thank God for God having words that come into your life. And I knew that if I could just take this first step, that God was going to be able to meet me, where I was. And so I knew if I just said yes, and I would take that first step, that God would make it somehow go. But I literally took that first step, but it wasn't until after we started moving down the line, I'm like, oh my gosh, the reason why I don't feel like it did, because me, I love being on the mission field. I love being wherever we're at. I'm all in it to win it. I'm as much invested in it as Matt is. But when I got there, it was just like a big old empty white wall. I was like, oh my gosh. And it was the first time I'd ever been overseas without you guys, because you guys made my life complete. And now there was this big, gaping hole where you guys were far away from me. And so it was it was really difficult, I think, for me to make that move. I had to find new purpose.
It was difficult for me too, because I look back and I think of Nigeria, and we didn't have power. We did homework by candlelight. We would take showers literally with bottles that we would have to fill up whenever we had a little bit of water. And so to see you guys now in Lebanon, looking at the beautiful sea with the beautiful people, with the beautiful electricity, I was like, why didn't we do that a few years ago?
Yeah.
Also, another thing is that me and Jonathan at the same time coincidentally ended up moving to the same place. So that definitely, had an impact on some things.
Yeah, it's been a little bit different. I mean, Lebanon has had its challenges. We moved over there actually whenever it was doing amazing. In 2018, we had made that step. We had taken a lot of trips over there. God had spoken to us that this would be the first time that we would have a team go before us and start getting things ready. And so things were moving on its way. And so we were kind of jumping in on a moving train, which was nice. But still, then 2019 hit. And then that's whenever everything started turning a little bit crazy in Lebanon.
The revolution happened in 2019, which displaced the government. And then in 2020, not only did COVID happen, but we also had the August blast that was the fourth largest non-atomic blast in history and displaced like 300,000 people within a moment's time. And but still, through all those times, we were able to, raise up a launch team, get a church started, turn that over, just started the Bible college. Started the Bible college and war breaks out.
On the day that war breaks out,
Yes.
I went down and told Matt, I was like, did you see the news? And he was like, oh, it's just another, because Lebanon has gone through war, and there's something that happens all the time.
Yeah, there's missiles
there.
going back and forth all the time. I'm like, they do it all the time. It's no big deal.
And I'm like, okay. Come to find out, it was the war that we're facing
Gaza
today.
in Israel,
Yeah. But the people are probably, you mentioned, Jonathan, in Nigeria, how the people are the most joyful people, that there's laughter. You see a different side when you're living in a culture. You see what they are truly like. And Lebanese people are amazing. They're so resilient. It's like one thing comes at them on one side and they just keep on going. And they can find a party in the midst of every single difficulty, which is wonderful. It's amazing to experience these cultures and the situations that they face, and God allows us to be in those situations and see. Lebanese are amazing.
Yeah, like there's fuel shortages. We had those in Nigeria too, where the fuel has not got into the country. So there's like these lines that last for a mile or 2 miles of cars that are lined up waiting to get into the gas station, and then a tanker comes in, fills up, and then only a certain number of cars get filled up, and then it runs out. And in Nigeria, a lot of times fights broke out during those times. But in Lebanon, the guys are just sitting there having coffee, laughing, and telling jokes to each other. Like they turn every crisis into a party.
It's true. Yeah, the team there is amazing. I mean, I've said it before, but every single person that is on team is just a quality person. Mm-hmm. And even though they've gone through so many things, each individual circumstances, it's just the best thing ever to see them rise above. And I think also what is really cool is you guys going into the places and then seeing how you meet these people. I mean, Christelle was working at McDonald's, the manager there. Rafi, he claims himself as the first ever Go Church member there. He was a taxi driver. Mm-hmm. Like they met him Matt and Julie Hadabah met him while they were getting a taxi. One of the key people that really was a big impact to COVID and helping get the services online to be able to reach so many people, which was like instrumental for Lebanon. They met him at the gym, just so many different things like that. It's so cool to be able to see the teams in every single place that you guys have gone raise up, even here in the U.S., it's really awesome.
Our prayers, I always tell people, just like Jesus, when Jesus would go into an area, there's always these one persons that came, like the woman at the well, and then she would go tell all her community. There's always these strategic people that are so unassuming, but God brings them to us, and they are the key people that God uses to spread and get the word out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let me talk a little bit about what's next. As we just mentioned, the church is doing well. It's strong there in Lebanon, and then the Bible college has started, and it's finishing out this November as we celebrate 30 years living and ministering overseas. This October, in November, the first level of the Bible college finishes in Lebanon. Yep. So we have the campuses in Egypt, and then they're in Lebanon, and it's like now that things are well established, it feels like we're able to turn things over there to local leaders so that we can focus more on the expansion across the region. And so as we celebrate 30 years, we're so thankful for all that's happened, all the partners, everybody that's enabled what's happened over these last 30 years. So much has happened. There's been more than $25 million leveraged towards the Great Commission. That includes for example, this is how that works, is $500,000 went into getting Nigeria started from Club 1040 partners over the space of like 8 to 10 years. But now every single year, the annual budget is like $1 million, and that's 100% from Nigeria for Nigeria. Mm-hmm. So the same with the churches that have started, with the Club 1040 resources, and now they are self-funding. Like in Beirut, the church is now self-funding after just now it's 2 years old. So the seeds of what people sow from a partnership standpoint have this ripple effect that has many times greater impact and rate of return. Well, now as we go across the region, there's countries that are opening up like Saudi and Israel and things that those things don't seem like they should go together, but those countries are beginning to open up, and the models and the team members that are established in the places, they're helping us to see that expansion. So by the year 2030, that's our 2030 vision, by the year 2030, we see these Bible colleges and church planting movements sparked across all 22 countries, or in other words, the remaining 20 countries. And that's what we're believing as we move into this, into the year 2025, as we celebrate this as we go into our 31st year, is we're going to be visiting 30 churches with the idea of establishing that partner base that is needed for that 2030 vision to see that happen across the region.
Yeah. So what are some things that you guys need, your teams need to make that happen?
To make which part of that?
all of it the process, like you've said, so it's to go into the place,
Okay.
raise up the local leaders. Yeah, you can go.
Yeah. So, I mean, in every one of the countries, what happens is, and this is the cool thing, is these things start, it seems like it goes kind of slow to begin with, but then there's this exponential
Yeah.
increase over time. Why? Because now we have, nearly 90 people in the Bible College in Lebanon that are coming through the first year. And then 1 year later, they'll be graduating. And these people are being trained we're already looking at the second campus to start on the Syrian-Lebanese border that will reach into the Syrian leadership. That'll be a part of the second year project for the students as they go through.
And they're Arabic speaking too. I think that this is a big highlight. In these 22 nations, there are Arabic speaking countries. We're developing leaders that are going to be able to go and reach into these nations. So literally what the seed that we're sowing right now is going to be exponential growth with these leaders.
Yes. And so as we go into each location, it's the man or woman of peace. It's those supernatural influence contacts, those people that will open the doors for what we are supposed to do there. It's praying, it's getting the facts on the ground, it's finding the specific strategy for that specific location, and then building teams. And teams start with taxi drivers and starts with people that manage McDonald's and starts with business people. We have graduates of Cambridge University in our teams, different people from different backgrounds, but we believe God's already beginning to bring those people together. In some cases, some of the graduates from some of the schools will be going with us and going for us. Another thing that's happening is this region of, the Middle East, North Africa region is going to become sectionalized where the countries, for example, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, the Palestinian areas, they all speak the same kind of Arabic. So there'll be a section underneath the leadership of the Lebanon school. And that makes it easier for them to begin to develop that side of things. We kind of will be doing that across the region, different areas, working with our partners who are French-speaking partners for the Maghreb countries and parts of North Africa. And so the strategy develops, the teams develop, but we also need the partner base to develop. Mm-hmm. And so, as we move forward in this next year, one of our jobs and one of our assignments is to take this season of time, 2025, and really, especially from the middle of 2025 onwards, and really press into building that support base that can resource out this expansion across the region. One thing that's really important is the fact that whenever we go to a place, we pray out the strategy, and the strategy is always unique, but has the same ingredients. So it's like, for example, it's training leaders, it's mobilizing near culture missionaries, church planters, but how do you do that in each location? So in England, when we started the church first, and then after 5 years, we started Bible college, and then we also started a mobilization aspect for missions from that place. When we moved to Nigeria, we didn't do a church, and we had over 500 different churches represented in the student body over the space of time, but we didn't actually start a church and lead a church ourselves. That would have been counterproductive. And we also did not start like a mission organization or anything there. But then in Lebanon, we started a church, but not a church like we did in England, a church that was a group-based church, a different type of church. And then out of that, a big part of the team that helped to start the Bible college were people from the church. And so in each case, and also there in Lebanon, we knew that the church was also to be a model of how to do church different. Mm-hmm. And so in each situation we go into, we pray out the strategy, we find out what is God's plan. And one of the things we're doing right now as we're beginning to transition to the leadership in leadership in Lebanon, and look at where we are personally going to be based for this next season, is we're in that phase of praying things out, relationship building as we enter the country, fact finding, learning as much as we can about the context, and believing that we'll have that unique strategy with those key ingredients for that place. And we endeavor to do that in every place we go to.
The Middle East, I feel, is where God's heart is right now. I feel like we're like right in the pumping place of God's heart. And we get the opportunity to be people's hands. We get to be the people's feet and people's voice. And, everywhere we go, people are like, thank God I don't have to go, and I will send you. And Matt and I, we are so grateful to be the ones that people send. We want to go. We want to be the ones that people send. And so we're so grateful for those partners that do want to send us. We'll gladly go for you and be your representatives. So we want to thank everybody that does send us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know one thing that you guys say, if you can't go, send. If you can't send, pray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to be effective, and we can't do it without them, and they need us. I love what the Bible says, how can people hear unless somebody is sent? And you guys can be the ones that send us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's multiple ways to send. Obviously, I say the number one way to send a missionary is by you doing your part in the local house, you coming and bringing your tithes, talents, and time to build up the local church, and then that local church has the strength from which to support people like Club 1040 and other missionaries that a church supports. But the other thing is after you've done that and you still have capacity and time, you can serve, especially in today's world where everybody's connected online. There's a lot of ways you can serve an organization like Club 1040 from a distance. We have people that serve from all over the world, help to make that support system a reality, so that we can, and the teams that we support can do what we need to do overseas.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on behalf of everybody watching, I just want to say thank you to you guys for the last 30 years of, going forward, trekking on, dealing with us too, and accomplishing the vision. It's been awesome.
You guys are awesome. Honestly, we talk about it all the time. We are so grateful that you guys are our kids, and that you have made, for the most part, the best decisions in life and made it easy on us, way comparatively easy to a number of people. We think, how could we have ever done what we've done with, all the other drama and stuff that so many families go through? And we thank you for going and being a part of this team too.
Yeah, that's awesome. The last thing I want to say is it's been so cool to see how every single thing along the way has prepared not only you guys for what you're doing now, but also for me and Jonathan. Every little thing has led to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing to prepare us. And so it's so cool to be all in the place that we are now, doing all the things that we are doing. And yeah, I'm thankful.
Yeah. Go team.
Go team. Woo.
Any last words, Jonathan?
That's all I have.
That's all I got to say about that. I'm done. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, hearing some of the stories, and letting us pull back the curtain a little bit and invite you into our family adventures over these last 30 years. It's because of you that Club 1040 has been able to do anything that we've done. Thank you so much.